Thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. Hi, friends. So glad you are here. What an exciting time. I want to share my screen real quick and we will get started. Um, it's a delight for you to show up and bring all of your team. And I hope this is one of the most encouraging days and that it really kicks off an amazing year for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the world of branded merch today and how to rethink your future. Now, I know this is what it looks like right now. You're a little bit too busy to see. What I mean by that is that we're all too busy to see the magic that we're creating all the time. We are so busy. It's been so chaotic. There have been supply chain issues, inventory, and then all just the things. If you're new to the business, you've tried to learn a myriad of things, thousands of things, details like imprint processes, products. There's over 1 million products. It's just astounding the complexity of our business. But one thing that you might not have noticed is that, and been too busy to see, is how dramatically the world has changed. Not only how dramatically the world has changed, but how the world views branded merchandise now. And that's what I'm going to share today in our presentation, because it's been a radical departure from years in the past. First of all, one of the reasons why it's so busy, why it's so hard for us to see what's happening in the world, to pan back and see, is that there are many things that are known so well, they're never really seen. There was an article published in the Journal of Consumer Research that talked about expertise and how it dulls our experience. The closer we are to something, the more we know about it, we tend to start losing the magic, and we have to work a little harder to apprehend that magic, to understand that magic, and to deploy that magic. I went down to Fort Davis down in South Texas near the border. And one of the darkest skies is one of the pockets of the darkest places in the US and one of the darkest skies in the world, the second largest telescope in the world, where I had an astronomer and a small group of folks walk through with a laser pointer and point out the details in the sky. I remember leaving that event thinking, that was actually kind of boring. And I think it's because he was too close. He'd gotten too close and understood so much that he lost his love for the magic of what was happening and unfolding before us in the sky. And sometimes in our work, that's the way it can be. We work so hard and we know it's so busy, and deadline-driven business is always so difficult that we know that we lose that. So today, my job is to help us fall in love again with the medium that you first fell in love with and why you got into this business. If you're brand new to the business, I want to welcome you probably to the most exciting time. You could not have entered this business at a better time. Mark and I talk about all the time that, wow, I wish we could start over again, because this is the time we would start. That's how exciting the days are. Yes, challenging, but also very rewarding. Now, for a moment, I want us to take a step back and look and see where we've been. Historically, the industry has hovered around 20 to 25 billion in gross sales revenue. And in the past, distributorships in particular have been separated or categorized into, we're in different categories. So there used to be e-commerce players like 4imprint that sold exclusively online. And then you had agency players in the business who were more creative driven, design driven. They didn't get into like fulfillment, warehousing, and kitting as much. So that's that middle section. And then there was this other section that focused on large program businesses, like the distributorship I used to run was focused on company stores and programs and fulfillment and kitting and all the merchandise related to that. But then something happened. The world closed for a minute and we all had to scramble and reinvent our businesses on the fly. And many of you did so admirably. It was such an admirable job. But something also happened. The lines blurred. Those distinctions didn't exist. Everybody started getting into kitting, fulfillment, shops. All of that was a wonderful change because it introduced many of us to different disciplines and new disciplines. So the world changed, and with it, the industry has radically changed. I think someday we're going to look back at this time frame and see that it was one of the most radical transitions that this industry has ever gone through in its history. Something else has changed, and that is what the market calls what we sell. And if you've noticed, nobody really calls it swag anymore. In fact, if you look at the Google Trends report, go to Google Trends, type in the phrase promotional products, you'll see what Google Trends will reflect, of course, is the search terms history, like the search terms, the popularity of a search term. And so when you look at promotional products going back as far as to 2004, the term reached its apex in 2004 and has been on the decline as since to represent what it is that we sell. In fact, the numerical value, the number you see on the screen at 100 is not a numerical quantity. It's just the highest number where those search terms, the yields of that search hit. Swag too has been on the decline. It saw its heyday in 2010, 2011, 2013, and has since been on the decline. But what I want to show you is what's happened with merch. Branded merch and merch in general has become the defining term for what we sell. Now, that's not a surprise to most of you that are on this, especially maybe new people that are in the business, because there's like, of course it's merch. And our clients will call it whatever they want to call it. And most of them are just simply looking for easy language handles to open a conversation. So they can't really be faulted for what they call it. And this isn't a semantics game about what we're going to call what we sell. What I'm trying to show you is how the market has changed what it calls what we sell. This has huge implications for our SEO and for our branding, for our websites, for everything moving forward. But also you'll see as I unfold this, it has massive implications for the value of what it is that we sell. Another thing that has changed, and this was published by Forrester Research, this isn't us saying this, is that there really aren't as many hardline distinctions between B2C and B2B anymore. In fact, selling to Gen Z and millennials, you'll know this already, that they bring all of their tastes, all of their preferences, their predilections, what they want, what they like from their consumer environment into their B2B world. And there are no longer those separations. That's why Forrester doesn't call the business buyer a business buyer anymore. They call them the business consumer. A massive change for how we sell, and a very welcome, refreshing change too. Now, I want to show you just briefly how the world once viewed merch as a whole. As a whole, many of us used to wake up to articles just like this. The Fast Company article, you'll recall here at a previous SKUCon, we've had the speaker that wrote that article here on SKUCon before. But the world used to call what we sell CPS, cheap plastic shit, freebies, giveaways, tchotchkes. But that world has changed. In fact, what really opened my eyes is when I had an interview with Adam Bluestein on the SKUcast. And Adam's a journalist. He's written for Marker. He's written for Fortune Magazine. He's written for Men's Journal. He's written for all kinds of large publications. And he typically does heavy research in bioscience of all things. And he got into our industry, started looking at it, and he spent hours, and he just got sucked into the amazement of it all. And I asked Adam, I said, how many hours did you spend on this article that you wrote? He wrote an article called How Supreme Style Merch Drops Took Over Corporate America. Our friend Jeremy Picker pointed this out. And he said, I spent over 100 hours researching this business in this industry, and it was absolutely fascinating. Now, to me, having a professional journalist look at our industry from the outside in and see how amazing it was very, very refreshing. And I asked him, I said, what were your thoughts as you uncovered this? He said, amazement. He said, I was talking to people, and it seemed like it was a unique way to connect through merchandise that they're not even getting through social media. So what a powerful statement from our friend Adam. Adam opened my eyes, because suddenly, not only were I seeing articles like his out there, I was seeing articles like this through Forbes. If you notice branded merch everywhere, you are not alone. Here's why. And when you look at what happened in the world of band merch, Kanye's Donda event broke records for the highest grossing US tour solely off of its merch sales. Solely off of merch sales. So how does the world now view merch? How does the world now view what we sell? When I first saw this, number one, I couldn't believe that somebody actually made a pair of Crocs like this. And then I really couldn't believe that they were sold out every time they turned around. In fact, KFC keeps doing this with the craziest products, releasing this finger-licking chicken mitten bucket hugger. And I can't believe I said that in a presentation in December. And of course, it went like crazy. Things like this are happening all over the market. And you'll notice what I'm calling a distinction between the industry and the market. Before I forget, let me say one thing. There are folks in the business, particularly maybe seasoned pros in the business, who look at things like that happening in the merchandise world and says, well, that's the consumer world. That's not B2B. Again, Forrester said there's no more that distinction. Not only that, many of the examples I'm showing you today are sold by distributors who are that are in the network, that are in our room, in this room, that are in the community, that are in the industry. So there's lots of cool things happening with merchandise out there, and it's created by pros in the business. You saw the Justin Bieber collaboration with Tim Horton on Donuts merch. And the other thing with Dunkin' is that merch is now this measure of brand love. It's a reflection of brand love. So the old swag was stuff we all get. The new merch is the gear we covet. It's a completely different world than it was even 2, 3, and 4 years ago. In fact, now you'll see that virtually every big brand, every small brand has an incredible shop or store situation. Whataburger, if you're down in Texas, I don't know which distributor is selling the Whataburger, but you're doing a damn good job because it's an incredible store and an incredible program, and they're doing a lot to build brand love across their stores. Chipotle, of course, also has gorgeous merchandise. So if you're selling the Chipotle, congrats on that. But it's everywhere we turn now. In fact, merch is now collections are being created by the craziest of brands and brands you would never think. Aldi's, the discount grocery store chain, has a merch collection. And Panera Bread, when it wanted to increase their soup sales, they didn't gather their sales team together. They didn't figure out how to create a strategy. They didn't create a sophisticated press release. They said, we want to sell more soup in the summer. How are we going to do that? And instead, what they did was that they created a swimwear collection made, of course, reflecting their soup names, soup images, and of course, it sold out. So big brands are using merchandise as press releases. In fact, this is no longer even applying to small brands or food brands or fast food brands. You'll notice as I present this today, it's happening all across the world. In fact, if you wanted to get a one color imprint black hoodie with a Fortnite Balenciaga logo, you could for $725. Oh, okay, maybe you're a little cheap ass and you don't want to spend that kind of money. Well, you could fork out $475 for the one color screen print t-shirt that's happening. It's kind of crazy what's happening. One fashion article said, is merch the new luxury? Saying that status symbol hoodies and sweatpants, what this means for the new age of consumers. And I love this copy in this article that said merch is the new black. Another example is what Elon Musk hates. Dion Monroy asked on Twitter why Tesla doesn't advertise. And Elon responded with this, well, I hate advertising. That's what Elon hates. What does Elon love? Elon loves merch. He said, I'm thinking of starting a new university, Texas Institute of Technology and Science. It will have epic merch. that was Elon's response. And when Elon wants to make a statement in the media, he doesn't do it with a press release. He doesn't just announce it on Twitter. He goes in and he launches a product to comment or converse with the market. Elon does this a lot if you watch him closely. And just this past week, Elon Musk said that Tesla merchandise can now be bought using Dogecoin. And I don't know who wants to go buy me that Texas belt buckle with Dogecoin, but you would be my best friend forever if you got that for me. But notice what's happening from fast food brands to discount grocery chains to gazillionaires, the tech industry. There's a new approach to merch. There's a new sophistication. There's a new respect. There's a new love for what's happened with merch. In fact, you'll see this carried through. There's such a high respect and a high sophistication that has happened with merchandise. Anything, by the way, that Elon's brand touches, you'll see this taste and this sophistication according to that brand. When White Castle wanted to create a brand new uniform program and create new staff uniforms, they asked one of the most sought after fashion designers in the world, Telfar Clemens, to come in and redesign their staff uniforms. And he created unisex uniforms for all. It's an incredible program. Google this later and read the articles. Read Telfar's comments on this because it's an incredible thing what he has done in building this and celebrating folks that are here, that are working with this merchandise and that work for White Castle. So I encourage you to check it out. It's a very encouraging program to look at. Look at what's happening in this. Just released this last week. Welcome to the era of cult hotel merch. Now, Ritz doesn't really need to advertise, but you know what it does? It does need to keep creating this obsession around the Ritz brand. And so we've always known this, but those in the merch business have known that merch democratizes the world in terms of the merch and the desire for it. One of my favorite examples, of course, many of you are carrying this bag, is the New Yorker tote bag. But in Vice magazine, I love what the writer said here. He said, famous tote bag company, the New Yorker, has become so successful, they also now produce a weekly magazine filled with investigative journalism, restaurant reviews, and satirical essays. One of my favorite examples has always been the New Yorker tote bag, because they have created this cult-like status symbol and yet a very, very approachable status symbol. Brands are now not only within their brand, they're launching mini brands within their brand that talk about their apparel. If you're a Glossier fan, you can buy Glossier wear. Another new phenomenon that's happened is that Networks are now starting to tease what's coming out in future episodes through merch. This was just released too, where a shirt was designed, releasing some hints at what's to come in an upcoming season. Never seen this done with merch before. Like there are new paradigms being set for merch over the past couple of years, and it's exciting to be a part of. Oh, and that cotton tote crisis article that New York Times wrote, simultaneously, New York Times has not one, not two, not three, not four, but they have 14 tote bags on their website. Another thing, authors. There's like everyone that is wanting to create a unique brand expression is turning to merch. When author Sally Rooney was releasing her book in 2021, in 2021 they sent out kits in advance to influencers, and the bucket hats and all the events around it were the talk of the literary internet. This is the first time I've ever seen this phenomenon too, where books are actually being written around merch. Written around merch. The writer, Japanese writer Haruki Murakami, just released a book on his favorite T-shirts in his closet, most of which were branded T-shirts. I sent a copy to Mark as a gift. It's just something you have to check out. I encourage you to have it in your showroom. Also, I encourage you to have the promotional use only book sitting around your showroom for your team. That was released by A24, and it's a celebration of film merchandise that was used to promote films. And so it's a great celebration in both cases of what our medium can do. So it's safe to say that the bottom line is merch is kind of having a moment, and you're walking right in the middle of that moment. And this is what I meant by us taking a moment to step back and look down at what's going on in the world and sort of celebrate what's happening. Not only that, but also understand that the world has changed and we need to up our game along with it if we are not. One other phenomenon that's happening, we don't have a lot of time to get into all of this, but what's happening overall with merch is fitting into this overall brand expression. Ben Adams with Advocate is coming on soon. Harper and Scott just released a division that will work in the metaverse. Our friends at Juice have always been about creating experiences, but digital and physical, there are no longer strong distinctions between the two. In fact, our friends at what used to be the PSDA, the Print Services Distribution Agency, just rebranded into Brand Chain because they all recognize that we work in the area of brand expression. And the distinctions between disciplines like print, promo, and digital are fading. And it's all about us that understand our client better than anyone else and can bring to fruition the best of that brand expression. So how does the world now view merch? Merch has become synonymous with products that people will pay a premium for, creating skyrocket demand, scarcity, and radical brand love. So merch is no longer simply advertising. It's the new press release, instigator, provocateur. Merch creates cult-like fervor and followers, forging tribal identity. Years ago, I was speaking to an ad agency exec who was just doing some phenomenal things in the market. And he turned to me and he said, "Hey, Bobby, you know what business you're in? You're a fan factory." And I thought that was the most wonderful example of what it is you and I do. Merch is an emotional connection and a conversation point. Merch is the new affordable luxury. Merch is now, this is probably the most amazing phenomena happening in my mind, is that merch is now leading trends, actually creating trends versus following and lagging behind. Merch now falls under a much bigger umbrella of brand expression. In fact, you do not want to limit yourself into what you will learn or do. Be open-minded to your client turning to you as a partner who understands their brand and understands how they want their brand expressed. And finally, merch is the concrete symbol of the abstract brand experience. So what does that mean for us today? What business are we really in? Are we in the swag business still? Are we all about creating those brand experiences? That's the $50 billion question. It's not how does the world view ourselves? Because I've already showed you that the world views ourselves in a completely different way than they used to. The $50 billion question now is how do we see ourselves? Because the industry, we have looked at a pretty finite pool of data that shows us that it's a $26 billion industry. $26 billion is self-reported numbers from within the industry. And so it's a small aggregate of branded merchandise. But when you pan back and look at the branded merchandise market, it could be 50 billion, it could be 75 billion, it could be 100 billion. We don't want to keep ourselves so small that we can't grow exponentially when the market not only values our merchandise more than ever before, but also the opportunities are greater than we've ever seen. So what business are you in? That's the question I have. Apple's not in the technology business. They're in the business to empower creative exploration and self-expression. Starbucks sells the oldest commodity in the world, but they exist to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Best Buy, they exist to enrich their customers' lives through technology. They don't just sell computers in boxes upon boxes and chains upon boxes. They want to enrich their customers' lives through technology. And Sanmar, they exist to create meaningful connections that elevates lives. And I love that about Sanmar because it's a connection everywhere they go, from their supply chain to where they source, to where they make the product, to you, their loved customer, to the end client, the end rejoicer. And I encourage you, by the way, to go check out their video. This is not a t-shirt. It'll emphasize a lot of what I'm saying. All right. We're wrapping up here, but I want to go with everyone's favorite part, which is homework. Mark and I always encourage folks when you attend an event like this, if you haven't done it already, to put it in your calendar for next week or the end of this week, as soon as you can, for you and your team to take what you learned today at SKUCon and share your highlights with each other. In fact, you could do this now. You could create a doc and go start dumping all your notes so that everyone has them in one place. Set a meeting with you and your team, and next week, go over those highlights. But not only that, go over those action points. And here's something you could do. You could add to this. You could create a report card, because selling thoughtless merch is honestly pretty easy. It's very easy. But selling intentional merch or making merch that's memorable, collectible, keepable, that's really hard. So we have some work to do. Kumo D created a report card back in the 90s about his fellow colleagues. And he sort of wanted to grade them on their skill sets. He graded them on vocabulary, articulation, creativity, originality, versatility, voice, record, stage presence. It was a really cool thing he did. So you can see that he graded everyone from Jay-Z to Lauryn Hill there on the left and gave them a grade. I want you to do the same with you and your team. How would you grade yourself? Create your own branded merch report card so that you can create a level to grow. Margins. This is probably the most important question I have for you today. Do your margins reflect today's merch madness? Are you still selling at a price point that is the cheapest stuff that people can get? Or are you selling at a price point that creates scarcity and demand? How would you grade yourself on design? Is design a priority or is it an afterthought? How about trends? Not just following trends. Jeremy Picker's going to unpack this for us and how to follow trends really well. But are you actually creating trends? Because every brand wants to be a lifestyle brand now. Every brand wants to be a lifestyle brand. What a great opportunity. Are you creating trends or are you following trends? I think there's a level where we go through of not being in tune to trends at all. And so that's okay. We learn. Then we get into tune with trends and we understand and we start building our sophisticated mind. Jeremy will cover this. But then finally, we start learning that we're going to go create trends on behalf of our clients. And how about ingenuity? A lot of folks reduce this even within our business, reduce our business to the same product that everyone can get. But here's the thing. Ingenuity is about taking a product that everyone can get and creating an experience that no one else can emulate. No one has the details about your clients and what they do and their priorities in their brain but you. And you see a product completely different than other folks see it. You see it as a canvas for an opportunity. So are you creating experiences that no one else can emulate? How would you grade yourself on that? And shops aren't just a transactional process anymore. As my friend said, they're now a fan factory. So are you selling shirts? Or are you creating a fan factory? And finally, services. Probably one of the most important aspects that we can't overlook. In this industry, for the longest time, the burden of our profit has come out of the unit price of the product we sell, and we have been giving away our services for free. So creative, kitting, shops creation, consultation, are you giving away the very best part of what you and your team do for free? It's time for us to make that switch. This year. And there will never be, maybe never, I shouldn't say never, but there has never been a better time that if the value of what we sell is incredibly high, then so is the worth of the work that goes behind it. Finally, I leave you with this. Our good friend Ann Hanley, who spoke at QCon before, go forth, be fearless, because good marketing requires a great deal of fearlessness. Thank you, my friends. Go create the future world of branded merch. And I'm so glad you're here today.